Hi guys, welcome back to another impromptu channel update slash Civ 6, Civ 7 breakdown. And for that matter, no, Civ 7 hasn't had any official news, but there has been talk from the developers and IGN about the future of the franchise, where Civ 7 is heading, and what the developers really want to talk about and add to the next installment of the franchise. So if you're interested in hearing about what Civ 7 could have to offer, please keep watching. So this article is pretty interesting because it covers all four of the kind of modern Civ developers, and by modern I mean like developers from Civ 4, like Soren Johnson, all the way to Civ 6, Ed Beach and Anton Stringer, and in between there we have one of the lesser known developers, the creator of Civ 5, who probably has had the biggest backlash since Civ 5's launch, was probably one of the worst for Civ in just Civ histories, at least for Civ games. So that's just my opinion, though. I'm letting that seep into the commentary here. But regardless, I do want to talk about some of the features here and just kind of the article. So the article has started off weird because it was like this weird mesh between what the developers have done, and then it like kind of generated or morphed into this weird analysis on Civ games. So what's really interesting is that the developers have actually wanted to share what they thought was some of the biggest weaknesses of Civ 6, like with Anton Stringer, who actually has left, unfortunately, the Civ franchise. I don't think at the time of the interview he made that announcement yet, but the interview was just posted yesterday, so I'm a bit confused on the timeline. Anyhow, Ed Beach is still working on Civ 6, so and Civ 7, presumably, so hopefully we get to hear some commentary from him in the future. But basically what Ed Beach has said is that he'd like to focus more on later game mechanics, like with trade and religion, and kind of expanding that in the future. Funnily enough, the big topic that every dev wanted to kind of weigh in on was micromanagement. A lot of developers like Ed Beach and Stringer specifically kind of noted that micromanagement was a big problem. They thought with the New Frontier Pass, especially, it was becoming way too complicated and tricky to kind of memorize all of the different stacking mechanisms that went into planning districts and everything. They said that they liked the notion of planning and plotting out districts, but it was just the individual bonuses and everything that kind of accumulates over time with different techs and different civs that kind of made them want to rethink that. And they just said overall it was way too much micromanagement and kind of obsessive control freak kinds of things that kind of, I guess, push some older fans away. But that was just their general gist and opinion. Personally, I think the micromanagement is fine. I don't think it's kind of in the realm of Paradox games. And they also talked briefly about Paradox games, interestingly enough, where there is just tons of micromanagement. You have to constantly manage your kingdom or fiefdom. I think Civ 6 definitely had more intensive management over its cities compared to previous installments of the franchise, but I don't think it got to the point where it was just insane. I mean, there were points where micromanagement was bad, like with all of the individual districts, like with dams and whatnot, and like production districts. I'll admit those bonuses did get a bit crazy. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it was too intensive to the point where it completely ruined the game for me. Something that the devs are really proud about is the rise and fall and just general kind of overview of mechanics and leaving a cultural legacy with monuments and just making an impact on the map. To specifically kind of talk about this, Ed Beach gives an example of building holy sites and interacting with mountains on the map, or even with industrial districts building around and focusing on rivers and dams, and just that interactability that kind of comes with micromanaging and just comes with touching upon how the world is more alive. And then, of course, the Gathering Storm expansion added natural disasters and even like volcanoes and hurricanes that really shook up how you played the game, and you had to kind of plan around that. With some of the older devs like Schaefer and Johnson, who respectively have their own studios and projects they're working on. Johnson is working on Old World, which is going to be releasing on Steam fairly soon. And then Schaefer, I'm not too sure what he's doing. He has his own little game studio. But Johnson specifically said he would not be very good for stockholder revenue, kind of joking a bit because he wanted to focus more on personalization. And Schaefer kind of offered a similar critique, or I guess description of how he would run things. He wanted to focus more on the later game and how it can kind of drag on and add more personalization to the leaders and kind of that customization aspect, which I think Civ 6 and future installments could really benefit from to kind of make that late game rush to the victories interesting. Finally, going forward with Civ 7, the developers like Ed Beach have really stressed wanting to diversify the audience and touch on lesser known cultures as Civ as a franchise continues to grow. So with Civ 7, there is really going to be a focus on even lesser known leaders. We saw leaders like the Nubians with the Kandake of Meroe, Amanitore, and we saw Lady Six Sky, some lesser known leaders and whatnot. But there may even be kind of more diverse picks with Civ 7. I know even with Civ 6, we saw some really unknown leaders and civilizations that kind of emerged from the roster there. But with Civ 7, we could even see some cultures that have varied poorly sketched out leaders, which could kind of make things janky and leave up for more interpretation. But they have just kind of reflected on how they like to add leaders like Simon Bolivar to kind of touch on a Venezuelan audience and Colombian audience, and Lady Six Sky to kind of touch on some of the history buffs, so to say. So people interested in Mesoamerican history. So there is kind of just a really broad roster, I think, that's kind of brewing for Civ 7. So we'll see just how diverse and impactful the choices they go and make with Civ 7 are. So we'll just have to kind of wait with bated breath. But as for release date or trailer for Civ 7, so far there hasn't really been anything. I think they're still waiting to see how Humankind peters out, but so far Humankind hasn't been exactly a huge splash into the water for the historical 4X sandbox simulator genre, as niche as that is. So we'll see just how long Civ manages to hold a kind of iron grip on the industry. So with all of that covered, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I know this was a bit impromptu, but I really have enjoyed covering Civ 6. It was one of the reasons why I started this channel in the first place, and I can't wait to see what Civ 7 has to offer and where the 4X historical genre kind of shapes out to be with new entries like Old World and future updates from Humankind. So thank you guys again so much for watching. I love you guys. If you like the video, leave a like and stay subscribed for more content. Otherwise, I hope to see you guys later, and this is it. Love you guys.